Hello, everyone. Happy holidays and welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. I am Dennis, the organizer of this wonderful group. Today, we're talking SEO myths. We have a great presenter, Jeff Coyle. Jeff's the co-founder, chief strategy officer at MarketMuse. Jeff actually just launched a new company today. So Jeff, thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you. There's so many familiar faces and some new ones. But yes, as you mentioned, I'm Jeff Coyle. I'm the co-founder, chief strategy officer at MarketMuse. My role at MarketMuse, as much as a founder, is also things that we haven't yet released, making sure that I understand the market, where we should head, and then some products, I bring them to market so that they can be sold. And that's the example with RepWords, which is a data solution. Basically, we have the largest keyword database and search engine results page database, and we're building out endpoints that turns anyone into a maker in SEO tools, effectively, or content tools. So we power 3 of the top 10 search platforms. We're kind of the people behind the scenes providing the data, and now we're finally starting to talk about it. In addition to MarketMuse Suite, which is a content intelligence platform really focused on quality and comprehensiveness. My background, I've been in the search space since 1999, as scary as that sounds, focusing on content strategy, lead generation, and search, paid, A/B multivariate testing. If you have any questions related to any of those things, just let me know. Today, I really, I reviewed what the presentation was going to be. I didn't actually look at the presentation, but I'm familiar with some of Chad's messaging. But what I also took from the standpoint of a content strategist, I have the pleasure of working with hundreds of SEO teams and content teams, and also talking to ones that don't end up working with me, and seeing their most common issues and the issues in their processes. And I'm looking forward to seeing Rosemary's presentation after this too, and see how many of these overlap, because there's a lot of myths out there. And these are the ones that I find bring the most pain for mid-market to small enterprise organizations or teams that are trying to bring content strategy to their organization. Maybe it's a team that is trying to myth bust internally. They haven't spent a lot of money historically on content, and there's misconceptions about what SEO is and the value that it can bring. Oftentimes, these are situations where your website is broken into silos. Some people own this content over here. Some people own this content over here, and they haven't brought to the forefront the fact that that's really, really bad for a business when they're thinking about content as in 5 pieces of ownership that don't talk to one another. And so I'm going to bring that. So I've got a quick slideshow which covers all of these things, and I'm going to talk over them. And then I've got a few bonuses that are just based on who's in the room and what I know about your sites, that I will kind of highlight some additional myths, not negative, just the ones that are really, really important, that I did not include in this, that I see happen a lot. So can you all see my screen? Hope you like my title.
Yep.
It's SEO mistakes that bring pain. So basically, okay, good. Excellent. So these are from my standpoint, that's the issues that I see time and time again ruin teams, negatively impact outputs, or create situations where reports cannot then be tracked back to the data that was used to create the reports. And then all of those things can bring really, really bad outcomes. And a lot of them spawn from the desire that humans have to make things all about if-then statements or inputs to outputs, or to have causation, kind of, because it's just the way we think and the way we desire. And I'll walk through common workflows, and I love any questions. Please feel free to stop me or do something in the chat. I see some chat in here. I don't know if any of them are directed towards me. Oh, no, it's just a presentation that we were referencing before. All right, so I'm going to get started, and I hope this is tremendously valuable for y'all. And then ask me any other questions about SEO mistakes, or as we go, or at the end. Cool. This is the key one. The use of use of search volume as one's North Star for all keyword research is the biggest mistake that we see from an ideation and a prioritization metric. It's just natural because of the tomes of information in SEO to believe that using demand in isolation is good enough. Google trained the market to believe this because their only keyword research solution that they released was the Google AdWords Keyword Planner, or GAKP, as we love to call it. The results it returns is their MSV, or their search volume data point. It also has pay-per-click competition, which has nothing to do with organic search and SEO. It gives you it can give you a relative reference of commercial intent, but that's about it. And their perspective on pay-per-click competition. So this created a market where keyword research was driven by search volume as the North Star. And I'll walk through why this causes such tremendous problems, and some examples that you may or may not be able to relate to, but where it causes significant problems for teams. And then I'll walk through where it causes significant competitive risks. The first one, most common, and I'll also provide, I have a blog post about this specific topic. If you search for keyword research and the search volume illusion, it's a piece that I put together quite a number of years ago. The biggest key element here is that all I need to focus on as a business are keywords with a particular level of search volume, right? When the reality of content strategy is that you need to build robust, comprehensive collections of content that exhibit expertise, that tell the story that you understand the entire buyer journey. And what that means is you're going to be writing content that contains and targets topics that have lower search volume naturally to round out those collections of content. So what happens when a team is heavily focused on search volume only is that they're not writing in-depth content that speaks to all the stages of the buy cycle and that covers really specific user intents that people are looking for, either in the content that they land on or the content that's being linked to in that content. What this also does is it makes, and I always like to imagine a jaw with teeth, right? If you're just writing high-level pages, generic guides, or sometimes referenced as pillar pages or powers, you have no teeth, you just have a jaw, right? So you're not putting out content that follows through on the promise that you are an expert. You're just a generalist with your content. So teams that drive the bus with search volume, and some of these are major enterprise teams, we won't write an article unless the target keyword is above this particular MSV or SV. They never get to the stuff that really follows through and can often drive extraordinary conversion rates for their team. The second piece here is that a great percentage, there's different estimates throughout the market, but a great percentage of queries that Google receives are completely unique. They're one-time only queries. It's a shocking number. Ahrefs or Ahrefs or Ahrefs, depending on who you ask. I say Ahrefs or Ahrefs if I'm upset with them for any reason. It has released a study on this that you can look up. I believe it's 90-something% are one-time only queries. So what this also creates is a situation where people do not understand the concepts that live underneath a topic or a keyword. This is sometimes referred to as the term pool multiplier. And what that means is underneath this topic, you have subtopics, right? The ones that you can concept. On content marketing, target audience or buyer personas would be subtopics and related topics. But underneath each one of those, there can be 1 to 100x unique queries that are frequently typed in that you're getting to, all right, when you own this specific topic. These are things that can't be reported on as recurring search volume. So when you use this as a must-have when you're writing content, you're missing out on these pools of terms. And if you disqualify something from being written on, you'll never have access to these variable pools of words, which can have a tremendous amount of value for your company. And the third one I'll mention is based on that term pool multiplier scenario. I'd like to challenge everyone after this, you can write down your challenge, is to go look at the search volume for a article that you've written that had a target query, target topic. Go look at the search volume and do an exercise for yourself and say, how much traffic do I think this page would get if it were in a particular position? And go write down, do your math, right? Whatever data you want to use. The use of search volume ends up being a huge red herring for most teams because the answer to that question for them is they are almost always wrong in that predictive math. So even if I rank number 1 for 4K webcam, how much traffic is that going to yield me, right? They use the calculation from the word they were targeting to estimate, when the reality is to get a page to rank for 4K webcam, it's also going to rank for many other things. I'm going to have other pages in my cluster ranking for other things. And I need to be thinking about this as a pool of pages and a huge pool of words that all have to be there for me to own this topic. So the content that I create acts as a blob, a cluster, accumulating like a snowball of power on this huge pool of words. And I don't deserve to rank for these high search volume terms unless I exhibit expertise throughout the buy cycle and through that entire term pool. So teams that shoot for this particular word and don't think about what's underneath it fail. And they don't even understand why. Or they get lucky with one high volume term and they don't know how to protect that page. So the last thing I'll mention from a competitive analysis perspective is the best situation for me, if I'm looking to compete with you, is if you sort descend by search volume with your keyword lists, because I know exactly what you're going to do. Strong SEO teams will look for this. They look for someone who's looking for a keyword volume list, sort descend, and they've exhibited the pattern that they're just walking down the list. It puts you in a tremendously susceptible position to strong content teams. And I'm talking the best publishers in the world, when they have a publisher adversary who's doing this, or they've exhibited this signal in the clusters that they create, they will do multiple techniques in order to invade that person's turf. They basically can say, I know that, I'll pick on Dennis. I know that Dennis is never going to write these articles. And I know they are important rounding factors to my clusters. So I'm going to go write about them. So that's 4 core ways that keyword research using search volume as the North Star can lead to mistakes, bad predictions, misset expectations, and then huge competitive risks. The hilarious reality here is when people are doing these predictive research using search volume as the North Star, they're almost never right. And I've looked at so many people's estimate programs, and there's so many other factors that have to be involved. Should you use keyword research? Should you use search volume at all in your process? Absolutely. It is a very, very important directional metric. It also can give you a sense of, if I were to gain authority on this high search volume term, I'm going to unlock the ability to have to rank for a lot of other things, and I need to also do that research. But it's truly a directional metric, because let's say the search volume is very high, but this might be a 0-click search. No one clicks on it. Why? It could be what I call a KNOW simple intent. What's the capital of North Dakota? Bismarck, right? Click-through rate on that query is extremely low because Google answers the question right there. So you've got all different types of things that need to go into your analysis of words, and teams that work with solely keyword research as that North Star that drives the bus make mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. Any questions about this first one as I go into rant cycle?
We have an amen from the audience.
Oh, cool.
From the lunch eater.
Oh, I got an amen. All right.
You got an amen.
Ah, right. I love it. No sense optimizing for bounce. The other piece is that teams that do this, and then I'll move on to the next, is they frequently hit a wall with these clusters and they don't know why. And they start believing other things are true. One of those things they start believing is true is cannibalization. And I'll tease it because that's number 6 in this list. All right, cool. Now, one of the most controversial SEO myths, keyword difficulty. Keyword difficulty in every platform on the web that you may use. I can name the top 10 keyword difficulty metrics. I'll speak from experience here. I reverse engineered every single keyword difficulty metric on the web. 15 of them that are important. The gross parallel for all of them was many of them only use link data to be calculated. What does that mean? What it means is the methodology that's being taught to the market is that search results should be looked at and the people in the search results should be analyzed. So this is literally playing results. We all know what happens when one plays results in game theory, right? You make really, really bad decisions about how good your decisions were earlier, right? You're playing cards and, oh man, I should have stayed in on that last play after you see the final result, right? So it goes the same way. So what search engine optimization platforms have done is they've taken things that they can do high-level correlations. And one of them is link data. Links are extremely important, but they aren't the entire story for keyword difficulty. So I'll give you 2 examples of keyword difficulty. Not the most, because I don't want to dox anybody or go through explicitly of how all these work. If anyone has any questions about difficulty in their platform that you're using, let me know. First of all, Google AdWords Keyword Planner, that's pay-per-click competition. It has nothing to do with organic. That's the easiest one, right? SEMrush, their keyword difficulty metric, not the new one. The new one's better. It's a little bit better. The old one, all it did was stack rank all the traffic. They did a ranking of traffic of the top 10 million sites, and it would give you the average of where the sites in the search results were stack ranked. What does that mean? So basically, like stronger, higher traffic sites were designated as being harder to rank against effectively. That was what they did, independent of anything related to the keywords that are targeted, the topics being targeted, the search results themselves, search result features, so the stuff on the right rail, ads, all the other factors. Just throw them out the window, and we're just going to look at the traffic that goes to the people that are in the search results. Tremendously error prone, definitely not correlative, huge errors. And then you have like an Hrefs, who, by the way, will publicly communicate this, that their difficulty metric is only a link metric. So what is it saying? And what problems does this create for teams? What this does is it ignores the content on your site. We're all content people. So it ignores who you are, who your business is, what you write about, where your strengths are, where your authority is, where your historical momentum is on topics. and where you've had success and where you've had failures with content. What it does is you look at a search result for a term and you look at the cohort and it's just looking at their link volume and you make an assumption on that. So let's say, okay, I have 50, I'm a 50 score, right? So the search result has an average of 50. So that means I should be able to rank. That's basically what the process that's being taught to the market based on links. The effectiveness rate of doing this in this way is tremendously error prone. And I've seen teams waste massive amounts of money believing that this is how it works. Or believing that they can't rank for something so they don't try on a topic. Most commonly, this is how this manifests. So what does this mean? I have a brand new site. I'm not even going to try to go write the best article that's ever been written about this topic. Or I have I've written a cluster of content and it's ranking for some easy ones according to this. I've hit my potential on this topic. I'm not going to keep trying. The reality is that when you take link data as one aspect of a difficulty calculation and build composites against how much content you've built on a topic, your breadth of coverage, your depth of coverage, the quality of your coverage, and your historical success rate, and you meld that with link data, it can become very predictable. However, the market has trained us to only look at link data. So many mistakes can be made here, and I'll give you one example to illustrate it. If you go out, Dennis, and you go write the best article ever written on the brand new iPhone and you go throw it on your blog, it's not going to perform well for iPhone review. I'm really sorry. However, if you throw that same review, it's the best thing ever written. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. You go throw that on CNET, it's going to rank. It's going to do really well. The answer to that and why that ranks isn't just links. It's because they have history of writing great reviews. They have a great breadth of coverage, depth of coverage. They write about technology. They write about phones. They write about the iPhone specifically. They have historical authority on those topic site section combinations. The topic site section combination authority is as important for assessing difficulty as is the quality of the page itself and link data. So if you have a practice that's just looking at pay-per-click competitive data or just link data for your competition, you've got to get personalized. And that's my recommendation here. So far, so good? All right. This is good so far?
Real quick, Jeff, on that last point, what do you mean by, so are you still talking the iPhone example? What do you mean by you got to get personalized?
You got to figure out more about you and who you are. So okay. Like your site, what topics do you cover? What do you have success on? What is your link? What does your link profile actually say? Not all links are created equal. I could have an entire session about how links get valued, which ones are valued, why, what data is passed. But like, if all the links on your site, like, it's a great question. So let's just say you're in the middle of the pack in links, and all your links are about horse racing, right? And you're looking at top 10 are all 50, and you're a 50, but all the content that you write about is about audio equipment. That does not mean that you can go write an article about horse racing and rank. It's absolutely untrue. But that's the process that's been taught to the market. It's that you're allowed to just jump into the pool. Very few sites can actually do that without building infrastructure. So when I say personalized, it means I'm really, really good at writing about SEO. If I were to gain this level of links and a level of DA, domain authority, pages, whatever metric you're going to use from a third party that's agnostic of topics. If I then go write an article about like what's the best big screen TV put it on MarketMuse, I have no chance. I have no authority on reviews. I have no authority on TVs or technology. And if I want to grow there, I have to build infrastructure. I'm gonna have to build hundreds of articles about TVs, that write dozens of reviews in order to bridge into having that authority. So keep that in mind. And it is even tougher if you're in a regulated market. Don't even try to just jump in and go write Dennis's thoughts on, vaccine distribution. Good luck. Not going to work. You're not even close to being in a your money or your life sector with your blog, which is a classification. So there's so much more to it than linked data. Linked data is like, it's one of these, put your fingers. And I've seen teams, very large teams, set their watch to using linked data for difficulty. And it is so inefficient. It creates tremendous mistakes at the content strategy level. The decisions that are made over this is to create content and invest in it, and it can't ever be successful, or to not invest in something that could have been successful. A great example of this, a customer of mine, a friend of mine, Josh Spilker, he runs Friday.app. He's their content. He illustrated this recently. He was writing, he was like, if I were to follow the practices of all the SEO platforms in the world, I would have never written this article. And it's a top 5 ranking page for the word planners, right? And he's like, every other platform, he's saying every other platform because the punchline here is that we have a personalized metric for difficulty. Every other platform would have told me not to write this, right? And he is performing. So love that one. Okay, deep breath. Everybody cool so far? So we've got don't use search volume only. We've got don't use link data only. It's kind of easy, but I like to explain with a lot of detail. Thumbs ups?
This is great. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Here's the one that gets people. All SERPs are the same. All SERP click-through rate. So SERP, search engine results page, CTR, click-through rate. I think you probably knew the second one if you don't know the first one. So here's the punchline. All SERP click-through rates are not the same. Okay. There are tools that are out there that all the predictive estimates for search results are calculated the same way. And that roughly connects to an average. 30% for position 1, 15 per position 2, 5 for position 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. Position 11 gets 1.0 as a differential for some reason. Then it goes down to like 0.3 and goes on. Why did I say that? Because I want to illustrate a number of things that make this false. First of all, there are now Google search features that steal clicks. Not in a bad way. It's helping users. There's some of them that are in a bad way. Ads could be a bad way. Featured snippets, which is when you see a box. But there's also intents for words that people have rested their laurels on it, that then Google decides they're going to answer the question, right? And your click-through rates will drop over time. And so basically, if you're predicting, imagine you're using search volume and a static click-through rate. That's why I build this in this way. Because, okay, I'm using search volume, and then I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna get to number 3. That's going to be 5% of the MSV data, right? So I'm gonna definitely get 100 visits if I work on this. It's not even directionally accurate. So the search features that are shown, the SERP features that are shown, the percentage instances of ads, and then other things that get clicks. What the other metric is, intent fractured, and this is a little bit esoteric, but basically sometimes Google doesn't know exactly what you're asking for. They are giving you a buffet of things. I'll explain this in the intent side too, but they're giving you some pages that satisfy early stage awareness and some that are middle of the funnel. And maybe there's this other meaning for this word that you typed in. We're going to show you one result for that because you might have been looking for this other definition of this word. So when a user is scanning that result, their click-through rate is going to be determined by their frequency of this one intent, as well as if they want this other meaning. Maybe you're approaching the other meaning. So net, if you're estimating using these things at the high level without understanding search features, your predictions will be terrible. They will really, really be terrible. The punchline here is for the content items, the pages that you're already ranking for, you have access to all of this data already with Google Search Console. You may only think that Google Search Console has a admin and that it's capped at 1,000 words. That's not true. You have the ability to get a Google Search Console API account, and you can actually get all of your data. So if you haven't done that already, you can grab a much larger data set and get all of your current true click-through rates. There's also data sets that are out there. Punchline is, I sell one of them. But there's data sets out there that can give you truer click-through rates on your pool of words. What should I be estimating for click-through rates? But meets minimum, get your Google Search Console API on the words you already ranked for, and look at a few of them, and then say, okay, this is number one on average. The click-through rate was 11% on this one. Oh, I'm number one down here, it's 30%. And then you realize, oh gosh, I've been estimating wrong. So this is a really, really big problem for teams estimating how much traffic they're going to generate with their content and setting expectations for their teams. So imagine 90% of teams do these three things that we've talked about and how inaccurate their predictions are for their content plans. And just based on these 3 data points alone. Don't believe that ads don't matter to click-through rate either. Average click-through rate in an ad unit is over 10%, depending on the number of pixels covered. Can anyone guess how many I've studied we did 100,000 search results. How many organic search results were above the fold on a 10, what's used to be called a 10 results page set?
I'll guess 30%.
You are right around. That's basically it. So above the fold plus on page 1, there are some queries that only have 3 pages, 3 results organic on page 1 instead of 10. So the fact that they used to call it inside Google, if you look this up, you can find out the name of the engineer and everything about it. They just call it, and internally they say, Google is not about just 10 blue links anymore. They say that even internally. And so if you're calculating your SERP click-through rates based on 10 blue links, the error is everywhere. Building on this, I just talked about intent fracture. 2 reasons why intent fracture matters, and this is hard. If you've never done anything with intent, I know. Just understanding it, putting it in your brain, why intent matters. I'll give you 2 things. One is the outputs of this that lead to errors. And I'll also comment on a common mistake that content teams are making that relates to this. So what do I mean by intent fracture? If I just type the word CRM into Google, right, I have both meaning ambiguity, because there's other acronyms that are CRM in the world, even though the most popular one is customer relationship management. I also have intent fracture. So what that means is I could be looking for what is CRM. I could be looking for a guide to CRM. I could be an expert. I could be a beginner. I could be looking for comparison of software packages. I could be looking for pricing, right? But I started my search with CRM. So what does Google provide? They provide ways of refining your query, like people also ask, or recommendations for additional keyword variants. But they also have to show a search result, and they're not really sure what the right thing is. So they have what we reference as Google's favored intent. That's if it's a fractured query, the most of the stuff they show's connected to this one specific use case, user desire, you can think about it. This is the information gain that I want. They're also going to show some other ones, right? So in this case, a lot of times you're going to see, what is CRM? Dennis will laugh because that was something that we ranked #1 for at one point in our life. What is CRM? And then CRM is, maybe it's the guide to CRM, or maybe it's the stock ticker for Salesforce, which it is. Maybe it's the Salesforce homepage because they have one of the best SEOs in the world. Or it's about CRM, which means, cold remote monitoring. That's not true. But let's just say Google thought that that meant something. They might show one result from that. So what does this mean? It means your competition that you think you have on this word, you don't actually have the ability to compete for all the spots in that result page. Let that one sit for a second, right? With that one page that you're creating, you actually are only competing potentially with 3 or 4 other first page competitors. Gulp, right? You're competing. And then the error of looking at a unified intent. What if there are other things that Google's just not showing, but they are relevant to your business? This is a really big key. And I'm trying I'll explain it with an example. I'm trying to rank for a definition. What is CRM? The #1 results page is all definitions. Does that mean that I can just rank on page 1 if I just write a definition? Absolutely not. It means that I have to have a huge infrastructure of content about CRM at all stages of the buy cycle to have the privilege of ranking for the definition in most cases. So if the myth here is that I can look at a search result page in isolation and not care about any of the other content on that site that I'm competing with and just do what I see in the competition. And that's going to lead to me having consistent success. It only works in special situations. And when you are saying that because I see this type of page, I need to build this type of page, and then you say period, move on, absolutely a disaster. It can lead to creating a whole bunch of pages that have no connective tissue. And you're not building the way an expert would. You're not building like the person who wrote the book would. All you're doing is copying other people. And that is one of the biggest mistakes that can be made with intent fracture. So the way that you can approach this is if you're heavily relying on the traffic or leads that's coming from a particular keyword, build your, oh my God, I have to keep growing and doing better on this list of words for your business, and keep tabs on those search results and understand if it's unified intent or if there's a mix, because you're going to have to account for that. And it might result in you having to build 10, 20, 50 pages to support that marquee page, and really, really support that with a cluster of content and build up your walls so that you're less susceptible to invasions. Anyone that says intent is a hoax, that's great. Please tell me who they are, and we can really do some damage to them. And this dovetails with this. Everyone is beatable in my competitors, or I'm a big brand. I only compete with big brands. I don't have to worry about publishers, right? So I really recommend, so a lot of teams will, this isn't a true statement, but Home Depot, I'm only worried about Lowe's, right? Not true, right? That's not an actual truth. But you have to account for all the different types of pages and different types of businesses that you're competing with in organic search. In addition to all the different types of intents on the page and the types of content those people have, you also have to account for and be okay with the fact that there's different types of businesses in your competition. I hear it so common. I'm getting beat by G2 Crowd and Capterra, and if you're in B2B tech, and there's just no way I'm ever going to beat them because they've got this thing, and I'm not an aggregator, so I'm not even going to try, right? Because you're a B2B tech company, right? First of all, ridiculous. You can absolutely beat those people. They're very strong. Most of them customers, right? So I know like some of the stuff that they do, but you can attack those folks, and you also need to account for what they're doing. So the recommendation that I always give to teams is if you only are focused on the same competitors that you sell against, those aren't the same as the ones you're competing against for content. And this is going to be a splash of water for a lot of companies. And this is something you need to bring to your organization at the highest level to explain it, because a lot of times this is where content strategy budgets get cut and destroyed. They go in and they say, well, we're an e-commerce shop. We don't need content, or we're not a publisher. But the people who are competing with us may be publishers. And what does this lead to? It leads to other people educating the market or being there during our prospects' buyer journeys. I'll give you a great example. I work with a shoe company who had absolutely no content, and they crushed it for a lot of terms with extremely low content. They were letting all the publishers in the world and competitors be the buyer journey, and all they were getting was transactional outcomes. So the top 10 best shoes for, moms on the go, right? They weren't there, and they never wrote. So they were being educated by other people. Their shoe may or may not have been in those lists. They're paying more affiliate fees than they should, and a whole lot less people are seeing them as exhibiting expertise on the use cases for their own product. And this all roots from C-level executives believing that they're only competing with the other shoe companies and not NY Mag and Wirecutter and Red Ventures and everyone else that's writing about the industry. Another one that I'll cover here very quickly, because I know we're gone short on time, is cannibalization. Cannibalization is super complicated. It's one of the most complicated things about SEO, and it's the most common mistake, is that people believe this is true. Cannibalization means I have focused on the same keyword with 2 pages. That is absolutely not what cannibalization is. If you have a team or SEO that is communicating that you only should have 1 page for each keyword, I have a bus back to 2010 and I buy their ticket, right? It's not true. It's damning for your company. It puts you at huge competitive risk. In large organizations, this can also manifest in, my team owns this word, you're not allowed to write about it. Okay, this actually happens at large 3-letter companies. My team owns CRM. No, I get to write about CRM. Okay, that has a terrible impact on the bottom line. But the reality is, you may need to write 100 pages about one particular keyword in order to have the luxury of having Google's favorite intent for the user's location, the user's search history, the user's behavior. If the user's logged in, your page may show. When they're not, it may not. To be able to be there in every place you possibly can, you need to cover a lot of different types of users and learners. You have to cover it with long content, short content, visual content, video content, for beginners and for experts. Okay, all those 6 things I just said are focused on the same keyword. That's not cannibalization. It's bananas. The reality is, affiliate hooks drive this false data. And these are people who their sole purpose is getting affiliate revenue for you to learn SEO from them, because it's in their best interest that somebody focuses on 1 keyword, 1 page, because it's really easy to teach. And I know that's super ranty, but it's super true. Go look at the most popular courses on SEO and type in cannibalization, and you will see the 1 word, 1 page approach. It's bananas. It doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work for B, and it doesn't work for high competition zones. It only works in a few situations. If you truly have 2 pages that deliver the exact same information gain and don't differentiate at all, and one of them converts at a high rate and one of them doesn't, that is cannibalization. It is your job to figure out how to solve that problem. It's really, really hard to diagnose. But just because you have 2 pages that are competing with one another to rank for the same term isn't a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And the market believes it's bad. And it's super sad. Cool. Last one I'll mention is mimicking one's idols. If you try to do what Amazon is doing, or CMP, I almost said, wow, I just dated myself, or IDG is doing, or Tech Target's doing, or Red Ventures, or Viacom CBS, and you try to copy what they're doing, you will die. It's plain and simple. The advice that is given to SEOs in this market to go to the top 3 results in search results and copy the amalgamation of those top 3 search results is insane. It's completely insane. I've seen it destroy businesses at the mid-market and small business because you can't do what they're doing. They're allowed to get away with more than you are because they're very authoritative in a lot of cases, and they have that historical corpus of content about these topics. Are they good to look at and try to learn from? What's working? Yes, but it doesn't mean that's what you should do. If you do that, let's say they do something that they're getting away with that you can't. It can lead to even something as terrible as being penalized. Amazon, for example, by all measures, participates in black hat SEO techniques. Probably shouldn't say that on a recording, but they do. If you go optimize against what Amazon's doing, you're in trouble. And I can walk through that in more detail if anyone's interested in how that works. But the other example would be the biggest publishers in the world. They may have built an article that covers multiple intents. It's a generalist guide, and it also covers a definition, and they're crushing it. It's not really best practice to do that. So you may be doing something that's not best practice, and because you're weaker than them, you have no chance. So you're actually taking yourself out of the game by mimicking your idols. The head of SEO for a major publisher, he reaches out to people who are copying their strategy because he just feels bad. He's like, don't do this. We're allowed to do this. You're not. And that's a true statement. I can't say his name because he would get mad if I did. But please, 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 if your teams are banking on this, copy the top result or do what they're doing, it can create such terrible, terrible disasters for teams. All right, I'm gonna stop there because of time. But I would say that my other takeaway is really, really know your content efficiency. How much content do you create and how frequently does that hit your goals? If you published 120 articles last year and only 10 did well, you should know that. Because then when you calculate your cost of content, your head will explode because you're saying I spent an average of $500 an article last year and my efficiency rate is 10%. Well, how much did your content actually cost in real effectiveness? It's 5,000 because your 10% hit rate. Your goal doing this job and a content strategist is to increase this number. This is the main number that if you increase, it will move the needle for your team. And it's sadly the main number nobody knows for their business is how do the content items that they pick to create actually lead to success when it goes through the whole process. And teams that I work with go from 10% to 40%, 50% on these numbers. And you should be striving to drive this number. This is the number that really, really influences the outcomes. And that's kind of funny because it's all about the CMO or the editorial lead or the GM or the content strategist making great decisions about what to create. And if you set a standard for building the best content every time and you pick the right winners, it can be an overwhelmingly more impactful way of doing SEO. So thank you for this. And that's me.
That was amazing, Jeff. As a pinch hitter, you just hit a grand slam. We have time for one question. So who's got a question?
I have one.
All right.
So Jeff, when you talk about content efficiency, what would you use for success metrics for software companies? What would your top 3 be?
Awesome. Great question. Well, the main one is when you build a brief or you propose to make an article, you should have a process to predict the outcomes that you're shooting for. All right. So often I'm looking for, do I expect this to be temporal or to provide recurring entrance, organic entrance value? Am I associating value with other channels like social or paid or my natural distribution or other things? So I want to have a breakdown of those things. So I'm going to typically have non-organic contribution organic entrances, if I believe they're recurring, and then engagement data, if it is middle of the funnel, late funnel, so second click, engagement data, and then conversions depending on the type of page. So I have to know type of page, contribution from other channels, but the easiest one is recurring entrances from organic search. That's one you certainly can set your watch to. If you thought that the page was going to get recurring entrances from organic search, and then it does, that's enough for me to consider that a hit. Is it a single or a grand slam? That's going to be, so if I put a bar in, 10 recurring entrances, 100 recurring entrances, whatever you have to do an audit of your current efficiency to do this right. It's going to hurt your feelings. You're going to cry a little. It's okay. Trust me. It's no matter what. Know your high bar, your low bar. Let's say it's 10%. Let's say you're at 10% right now, and you set the bar for a little bit below your average, and say we're going to at least get that. That's going to give you an assessment of how frequently you're achieving the goal. But sometimes you create content because you don't expect recurring entrances. It's support content. So when you assess pages, this is one of the big mistakes I should have mentioned. Assess the page level as well as the blob level. So you got all the pages about CRM move as a mass. So just because one page isn't doing direct traffic, but the entire mass went up, is that all boats rise concept. You have to analyze page level as well as site section level or topic level. And that's easy to do. So just build your list, and that's the way you can really check your work.
So we just see so many people still on this whole kick of they have to get one blog post out a week, right? Mm-hmm. And we know what happens to that after the first month, not even after the first month. We're talking 10, 20 page views, all page views a month. It's a really hard thing to get people to move off of that. And so I give them a metric of saying, we should be hitting 100 page views a month. Do you have a metric that you use?
It depends on the business that I'm working with, and trying to get a vision match with them and understand what their expectations are going to be. And the decision of what to create or what to update will guide this, right? So I want to know its goal. Is it part of a cluster? I want the overall cluster to have this much traffic. This is just a piece player. But I don't have a hard number for the number of entrances. Is this page getting any repeatable recurring entrances is usually a good metric if it's not a support page. That's really the only thing that kind of is universal here. The other question, answer to that question is your page will naturally build up rankings for what's called intent mismatches. So you'll start ranking and getting traffic from pages where the page doesn't satisfy the intent. You've got to move on that. So you wrote this blog post and it's about content briefs, but your article is, what is a content brief, right? Well, you start ranking for content brief templates, but your page has no templates on it. It's just a definition. So you got to go write an article that has a bunch of templates on it, and you got to link to this main page. So it's also about reacting to stuff the page ranks for, to either change that page or create something new to satisfy intent on both. So the reason why I say it that way is that first page may have gotten some traffic that I actually would rather to go to another page. And so when I'm assessing efficiency, I also want to see, did this page gather moss? Did this stone gather moss from stuff that it maybe shouldn't have? And what does that say about my site and about me? But you set the bar based on your current averages, and your team will just get better and better. That's really what I kind of trend for or shoot for. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No, it's a great question.
And
Such a good one.
I think we're unfortunately out of time. Greg, Jeff's contact info is on the screen. So for more questions, I assume they can contact you, Jeff, for more questions.
Yes, and all the notes in here are definitely check out any way you can get Google Search Console API data into your business, if you're not already doing that, get it. So thank you so much for having me, even though it was last minute. This was super fun.
It was amazing. Amazing.
I look forward to, can you shoot me this video when it's done?
I can shoot you the video. Oh, last thing. So if people go to marketmuse.com, is there any way, so like a free trial or a free version of MarketMuse?
We have a free version of our applications now for anyone that wants to check it out. We also have standard, which is it's a package for just our applications. Premium is access to our inventory platform. The inventory platform has metrics like, see, this is the punchline, personalized difficulty, our on-demand content inventory platform, unlimited brief creation and the self-serve brief generation, and many other things, all of which aim to solve these common pain points. But what it really does is it allows you as kind of the thought leader inside your business to make more great decisions about what to create and what to update. So you can actually know how much content you need to create about, the new iPhone in order to, make an impact. And it's going to tell you, hey, Dennis, you got to go write 1,000 articles about phones. And you're just like, okay, I'm not going to go for that one. But please go check that out and shoot me a note, jeff@marketmuse.com, if you want to see a premium walkthrough. I can get your data in the system. I'll promise you the top 3 pages you should update. How about that? There's your hook.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Thanks again, Jeff. And we'll see everyone in 2022. Happy holidays.
Happy.
Thanks, Jeff.